Welcome back to Guitar Theory Modules. This is Module 4 and we're on pages 17 and 18. In Module 3, you learned how to use the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half step pattern to play major scales. It's important to be able to read and write your major scales too, so in this module, you'll learn how to write major scales in standard notation. In Guitar Theory Modules, page 17, I show you 3 steps for writing major scales starting on any note. Step 1, write the first note, and then write that same note an octave higher, and we're going to use D for our example. Make sure you leave enough room between those 2 notes so you can fill in the rest of the scale. Step 2 is to fill in all the notes between the bottom note and the top note. There should be a total of 8 notes, including your 2 starting notes. So make sure you put a note on every line and in every space. Step 3 is to use the whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half step pattern to figure out the flats or sharps in the scale. For now, write your W's and H's between the notes so you can stay on track, and you can use your fretboard to figure out the notes. This is a really good way to not only figure out how to write major scales, but it's also a good way to get to know your fretboard. So we have a D, that's our starting note. Next note is an E, we need a whole step. D to E is a whole step, so we're good there. Next we have an E going to an F. We need this to be a whole step. E to F is a half step, so E to F sharp is a whole step, so we need to change the F into an F sharp. F sharp to G, we need a half step. And F sharp to G is a half step, so we're good there. G to A, we need a whole step here. That's a whole step, so we're good there as well. A to B, we need a whole step. That's a whole step, so we're good. B to C, we need a whole step here. B to C is a half step, so we need to change the C to a C sharp. And now we have a whole step. And then finally, C sharp to D, this should be a half step. And it is. Here are 4 rules that'll help you with constructing these major scales. Rule number 1, each scale is going to contain every letter of the musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. Some of those notes are going to be flatted or sharped, but it's going to contain every single one of those notes. Number 2, you're never going to have 2 of the same letter in a row. For example, you're never going to have an E flat and an E in the same major scale. That's probably going to be a D sharp and an E. And you're never going to have a G and a G sharp in the same major scale. So you never repeat a letter right after that letter. Number 3, any major scale is only going to have sharps or only flats. You're never going to mix sharps and flats in the same major scale. So if you're writing out a major scale and one note is sharp and there's a flat later on, something went wrong. And number 4, as you're figuring out your half steps and your whole steps, remember that B and C are a half step apart, and E and F are a half step apart. All the other natural notes are a whole step apart. We have a written exercise on page 18. If you have my Guitar Theory Modules book, you can just write in the book. If you don't have my book, you're going to need some manuscript paper, and I have some free manuscript paper you can download from my website. I'll leave a link for that in the description. Anyway, your job is to write out a major scale starting with each given note. So go through the 3 steps we talked about on page 17, write the other note an octave higher, and then fill in the notes in between without skipping any lines or spaces, and don't worry about filling in the sharps and flats just yet. Just write those notes, and then use the whole step, half step, whole, 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 half pattern to figure out which notes should be sharp or flat. And remember, you're not mixing sharps and flats in the same scale. It'll help a lot if you write the WWH, WWWH under each line. That'll help keep you on track with these whole steps and half steps. I'm going to go through each one of these, so pause the video, write your answers, and then fire the video back up again and check and see how you did. And if you have my book, you can check your work on page 211. Number 1, you're given the note F. So the first thing you do is you write another F an octave higher, and then you fill in all the notes in between. So you should be looking at F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. From there, you need to figure out your whole steps and your half steps. So F to G needs to be a whole step, and it is. G to A needs to be a whole step, and it is, so we're good there. Don't need to change anything yet. A to B needs to be a half step, but A to B is a whole step, so we need to change that B into a B flat. And now we do have a half step. Next, B flat to C, we need a whole step. It's a whole step, so we're good. C to D needs to be a whole step. It is. D to E needs to be a whole step. And it is. And then E to F needs to be a half step. And it is. E to F is always a half step. So our F major scale will be F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and F. In number 2, you're given the note G, so we go through those same steps, write another G an octave higher, leave room in between for all the rest of the notes, fill in the rest of the notes, so now you should be looking at G, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. And then from there, figure out your whole steps and half steps. So G to A needs to be a whole step, and it is. A to B needs to be a whole step, and it is. B to C needs to be a half step, and it is. Remember, B and C are always a half step apart. C to D, we need a whole step here, and that's what we've got. D to E also needs to be a whole step, and it is. E to F, we need a whole step, but E to F is a half step. So we need to change our F to an F sharp, and then F sharp to G needs to be a half step, and it is a half step. Number 3, you have the note B flat for a starter, so write another B flat an octave higher, and then write those notes in the middle. So you should be looking so far at B flat, C, D, E, F, G, A, and then another B flat an octave higher. And then we figure out our whole steps and half steps. B flat to C, we need a whole step. It is a whole step. C to D, we need a whole step here. And that's what we've got. D to E, we need a half step, but D to E is a whole step. So we need to change that E into an E flat. Then we need E flat to F to be a whole step, and it is. F to G, we need a whole step, and we're good. G to A, we need a whole step, and that's what we've got. And A to B flat needs to be a half step, and that's what we've got. B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, and B flat. Number 4, we start with an A. Then you write the other A an octave higher. Write those notes in between, so you should be looking at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then the other A an octave higher. From there, we figure out our half steps and whole steps. We need A to be a whole step, and it is. B to C, we need a whole step here, but B to C is a half step. So we need that to change that C into a C sharp. Next, we need C sharp to D, and we need this to be a half step, and it is. Now we have D to E, we need a whole step here, and that's what we've got. Next, we have E to F, we need a whole step here, but E to F is a half step, so we need to change that F into an F sharp. So E to F sharp. F sharp going to G, we need a whole step here as well. F sharp to G is a half step, so we need to change that G to a G sharp. so it turns into a whole step. And then G sharp to A, we've got a half step there, so we're good. Number 5, we start off with E flat. So write your other E flat an octave higher, fill in all those notes, so you should be looking at E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then the other E flat. From there, we need to figure out our whole steps and half steps. E flat to F, we need a whole step here. That's what we've got. F to G, we need a whole step here. And that's what we've got. G to A, we need a half step, but G to A is a whole step. So we change the A to an A flat. Next we have A flat to B, and this needs to be a whole step. That's way bigger than a whole step, so we change that B to a B flat. B flat to C, we need a whole step, and that's what we've got, so we're good. C to D needs to be a whole step, and it is. And then D to E flat needs to be a half step, and it is. And finally, number 6, we start off with the note E this time. Write your other E an octave higher. Fill in all those notes. So you should be looking at E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and then E again. From there, we need to figure out our whole steps and half steps. So E to F, that's a half step. So we need to change that to a whole step, meaning we need to change the F to an F sharp. F sharp to G, this needs to be a whole step, but F sharp to G is a half step. So we change the G to a G sharp. Next we have to have a G sharp to an A, this needs to be a half step. And it is, so that A can stay A natural. A to B, this needs to be a whole step, and it is. B going to C, we need a whole step here, but B to C, that's always a half step. So we change the C to a C sharp, so now we have a whole step. C sharp to D, we need a whole step here. C sharp to D is a half step, so we change the D to a D sharp, so now we have a whole step, C sharp to D sharp. And then D sharp to E, we need a half step, and we've got a half step. Before moving on to the next module, spend about a week writing out major scales. So download that free manuscript paper from my website. I'll leave a link in the description. Pick 4, maybe 5 notes a day and write out your major scales just like we did in this module. You're going to see these scales all the time, so it doesn't matter if you repeat scales. As a matter of fact, the more you repeat them, the better. You can learn from my theory videos without my book, but if you do order my book, Guitar Theory Modules, you'll have all this information in one place, and you might find it a little bit easier to follow along, so I will leave a link for that in the description. That's all for now. Thanks for watching, and when you're ready, I will see you in Module 5, where you're going to learn about key signatures.